Welcome, Dee Dee. Welcome, Rick. Welcome, Shay. How's the audio, video, connection? Hey, Soma, welcome. All right, let's get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Appakate manuse su ye jana parigamino attayang ittara pajjati rameva nudavati ye chako sammadakate dhamme dhamma nuvattino te jana parame santi machundeyang suduttarang Kanhang dhammang vippahaya sukang bhaveta pandito oka anokang agamma viveke yatta duramang tatra vira timaccheya hitva kameya kinchano pariyodapeya attanang chitta klese hi pandito ye sang sambodhi angesu sammak chittang subhavitang Adana pattinisagge anupadaya yerata hinasava juttimanto te loke parinibbuta. English? There are few among humans who go to the further shore. The rest of them run about here on this shore. But those well established in Dhamma, those who practice Dhamma, are among those who will cross over beyond the realm of death so difficult to escape. Abandoning the way of darkness, cultivating the bright, the wise go from home to homelessness, which for others is hard to enjoy. Desiring that rare delight, renouncing pleasure, owning nothing of defilements of the mind, the wise person should cleanse himself. Those whose minds are well established in the factors of enlightenment relinquish attachments and delight not in craving. They, untainted and radiant in this very world, attain Nibbana. All right, friends. So welcome. It is Monday, and that means it is time for the Festival of Dhamma with the Maggaseka community. It's time for Dhammapalooza. In about a minute or so, we're going to jump into our meditation. And then after that, we'll see where it goes. Rick, you saw the interview with Clear Mountain? I'm glad you found it beneficial. All right, we're going to get started in meditation in a couple seconds. Put up the banner. They actually have. I was also part of their Zoom, which I don't think they actually stream live, but members, and they had a lot of people. They had something like I mean, it must have been like 80 people at least in their Zoom. It was quite big. Um, and there's more like questions and answers and discussion in there too. It was very nice. All right, let's get started in meditation. Set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. We'll start by doing a mindful scan of the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the head. Start by placing your focus and mindfulness on the feet. By placing your focus on the feet, means that to focus in on whatever feeling or sensation arises in that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. Move up through the ankles into the calves, through the knees and into the thighs. What's the feeling of the thighs pressing against the floor, the cushion, the chair? Move up to the hips and pelvis, checking that the position of the pelvis is allowing for the lower body to be stable. This is an important part of the body to pay attention to, not only from the lower body, but as we begin to move up the spine, coming up soon. The hips to the feet are the firm base of your meditation posture. Like the house has a foundation, a firm concrete foundation. If the foundation is balanced and stable, then the rest of the posture can just simply rest comfortable without trying to force the body in certain positions or anything like that. When you're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest, checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching left or right, backwards or forwards. Also checking that you're not trying to force the spine to be very straight. Both of these can cause pain, imbalance in the posture. Ideally, the spine should just be resting in its natural state, its normal curvature. Move up to the shoulders, making sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. And then down through to the elbows and hands, observing how their position also impacts your spine, your upper body posture. And finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning or slouching here or there, chin parallel to the floor. You're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position. Let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Your body's been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as the body breathes in and the body breathes out. Remember to lay down your burdens, let go of all the things you brought into this meditation from the day. Lay them down in the corner. You can pick them up again on the way out. As you're following your breath, your mind will become bored. Will seek to run away to the past or the future, across the world, into various stories and fantasies. Or an external distraction like a sound will arise. Your mind will chase after it. When that happens, you will be totally lost in thought worlds, but eventually it will slowly start to dawn on you that you have been taken away from the breath. At that point, fully acknowledge you've been taken away. Practice letting go of the distraction if it's still there by neither getting attached, neither getting agitated and trying to push it away, nor by getting attached and still clinging to it. See if you can do your best to let it go, to let it be, to give it no effort, energy, or attention, and then return to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Come back to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. Breath is home base. It's always there doing its thing, ready for you to follow it towards a more calm and tranquil mind. Every once in a while, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm and peaceful or not? As it does, you may begin to recognize the changing characteristics of the breath, seeing things in a more deeper and subtle way, how the breath changes from cycle to cycle. Sometimes the breath is long and deep, sometimes short and shallow. As your mind calms and becomes more focused and tranquil, see if you can notice these further characteristics of the breath. Slowly open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you and your body's position in it. Reflecting on the state of your mind before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out. Welcome to those who joined during the meditation. I am Bhante Jayasara, and we are doing Dhammapalooza, the Festival of Dhamma, with the Magusaka community. We did some chanting already, we did some meditation. Now it's time for whatever arises. I can give a Dhamma talk if you have any suggestions for topics, or you have questions, you can put them in the chat. We can read suttas. We haven't read a sutta in a couple weeks. We can continue reading the sutta about the Heartwood. So we have a wide variety of options. Now, last week I told everybody about how we became 501c3, right? Is there anybody who hasn't heard that? I think it was last week, because I think I found last Monday maybe. I don't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure I made the announcement last Monday. Did I? Shay and Rick, everybody was in the Clear Mountain, the Zoom. Yeah, the Ajahns always been inviting me to attend that for like over a year, but it's so late. I mean, I'm usually, like 10:30 is like I'm already in bed, doing some reading before I pass out. So it's hard to have the clarity of mind to do Dhamma talks and to answer questions that late. Um, there was one person was not happy with what I said about mothers who were talking about the Karaniya Metta Sutta line, but we closed out before anybody saw it or addressed it. So. All right. Let's share screen. That's not what I want to do. No, line by line. All right, good. A longer simile of the Heartwood. This is where my name is Sara. This is great, Maha. Sara, although the grammar is changed to Saro, Sutta. So I've heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha in the Vulture's Peak Mountain. I was there. It's quite an interesting place. Not long after Devadatta had left. Vulture's Peak reminded me a lot of West Virginia. Not necessarily like the foliage, but the terrain, the mountain, like the kind of like mountainous, hillish terrain. When I was on Vulture's Peak, it kind of reminded me of some of the views I had hiking at Bhavana. All right. So anyway, that's just an aside, not that important. But not long after Devadatta had left, what does this say? He tried to take over the Sangha. Okay, so this was right after he committed the schism. There the Buddha spoke to the mendicants about Devadatta. Mendicants, take the case of the gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homeless thinking. I'm swamped by rebirth, old age, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I'm swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. Hopefully, I can make an end to this entire mass of suffering. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put down others because of it. I'm the one with possessions, honor, and popularity. These other mendicants are obscure, insignificant. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there is a person in need of Heartwood. There's the Sara. And while wandering in search of Heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with Heartwood. But passing over the Heartwood, softwood, bark, and shoots, he'd cut off the branches and leaves and leave imagining they were Heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, and branches and leaves are." That's why he passed them over, cut off the branches and leaves, and left imagining they were heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed. This is called the mendicant who has grabbed the branches and leaves of the spiritual life and stopped short with that. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. They're not happy with that, and they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that, nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment in ethics. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one who is ethical, of good character. These other mendicants are unethical, of bad character. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding their accomplishments in ethics. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood, the softwood, the bark, he'd cut off the shoots and leave imagining they were heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passed them over, cut off the shoots, and left imagining they were heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed." This is called the mendicant who has grabbed the shoots of the spiritual life and stopped short with that. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve the accomplishment in immersion. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for, and they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one with immersion and unified mind. These other mendicants lack immersion. They have straying minds. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that accomplishment and immersion. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree stand with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood and softwood, he'd cut the bark and leave imagining it was heartwood. Oh, we have questions and stuff all of a sudden. All right. Um, we'll get to that. Uh, I think we'll have time. We're halfway through the sutta already, so we'll finish the sutta and then we'll cover questions. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, or shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passed them over, cut off the bark, and left imagining it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed." This is called the mendicant who has grabbed the bark of the spiritual life and stopped short of that. Next, the gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve knowledge and vision. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one who meditates knowing and seeing. These other mendicants meditate without knowing and seeing. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that knowledge and vision. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree stand with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood, he'd cut out the softwood and leave imagining it was heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passed over, cut off the softwood, and left imagining it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed." This is called the mendicant who has grabbed the softwood of the spiritual life and stopped short with that. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from lay life to homelessness, thinking, "I'm swamped by rebirth, old age, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I'm swamped by suffering and mired in suffering. Hopefully, I can make an end to this massive suffering." When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. They're not happy with that, and haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment in ethics. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of it. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that accomplishment in ethics. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment in immersion. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding the accomplishment in immersion. Being diligent, they achieve knowledge and vision. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that knowledge and vision. Being diligent, they achieve irreversible freedom. And it's possible for that mendicant to fall away from that, impossible for that mendicant to fall away from that irreversible freedom. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. He'd cut out just the heartwood and leave knowing it was heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman knows what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, and branches and leaves are. That's why he cut out just the heartwood and left knowing it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he will succeed." It's impossible for that mendicant to fall away from that irreversible freedom. And so, mendicants, the spiritual life is not lived for the sake of possessions, honor, and popularity, or for accomplishments in ethics, or for accomplishments in immersion, or for knowledge and vision. It is this unshakable freedom of heart that is the goal of the spiritual life, the core and the final end. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. All right. Oh, let's get this link here. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm going to now cover the questions. All right. So may I Bhante, I'm having issues with repressed emotions coming up from regular meditation the past few months, anger being the most prominent, but also sadness too. I know I need to just keep meditating, but do you have any advice on how to deal with all this garbage coming up? Is it garbage, or is it pointing towards work that you need to do? You know, I mean, it was repressed for a reason in the past. It's coming up now. What is that telling you? Right? Contemplate that. And even if there's nothing to contemplate, if it arises, if you get agitated about it, it actually makes it worse. So when you're meditating and something arises, you just acknowledge that it's there. You don't try to repress it or suppress it. You just say, okay, this is here. You know, it might kind of take you away from the breath for a little bit, but then you come back, right? Try to let it go, just like in the guided meditation. So, you know, try to not try to push it away and get agitated, nor keep being attached to it and holding on to it. That's practice doing that. And then, you know, when things arise, they won't bother you. You can have thoughts and stuff arise in your mind, um, and it not drag you and not bother you, especially if you are going deeper and deeper on the object, like following your breath. That is quite possible. And but when things arise due to causes and conditions, they cease due to causes and conditions, right? So whatever is arising, there's a cause and a condition for it. There's no need to get agitated and trying to push it away or have, you know, be critical of yourself over it. But also don't feed it. Right? Remind yourself, I'm here, I'm following the breath, I'm trying to meditate. Any, you know, burdens that I've laid down, I can pick up later. I can deal with it later. But for now, it's time to meditate. 'Cause I was wondering when I heard about that mother simile, someone will get mad at this. Yeah. Well, I suspect it was when I said something to the effect of a mother's love is limited. I don't think they like that. Hello, Gregory, welcome. How can one avoid feeling superior when one realizes their progress? Constantly reflecting on that you are not there yet, right? If you kind of are like lost in like, oh, look at all these deluded people, they're being so stupid, yada yada yada. We reflect, oh well, not only was I like that, I still am. Maybe I'm a little bit higher up the mountain, a little bit further along the path, but I still have a long way to go to myself. And so when you reflect on that, that kind of counteracts any kind of, you know, feeling superior or looking down on other people, because they have more dust in their eyes than you do. How do these parts of a tree relate to your experiences working with monastics and lay practitioners beginning the path? So the trees, the simile that we just went over in the Heartwood, it's about not seeing the essential. Right? In the Dhammapada, it says that what the wise see the essential as the essential and the unessential as the unessential. What the average person sees the essential in the unessential and the unessential in the essential, right? So the average person does not see rightly. The average person are those people that are, oh, I need heartwood. I'm going to go to a tree and I'm going to take away leaves and branches, right? Because they don't see the essential in the essential, right? They don't have the ability to see what really is heartwood. That's what the sutta is about. All the different ways you can kind of be deluded and make the wrong decisions and not get what you were trying to get because you had no idea that you were taking away the wrong thing. All right. I think maybe we can do some maybe sutta roulette, something like that for a little bit. No. Can pain be used for meditation? Yes. Yeah. Pain, that's part of satipatthana. That's part of the foundations of mindfulness. To understand what pain is, to investigate it deeply. Right? Whatever your experience is, you investigate it, you know it, you try to understand the gratification, the danger, and the escape, the rising and the falling, trying to understand its origin through Yoniso Manasikara, right? So pain is a deep part of the meditation path. Understanding it, experiencing it, becoming, enduring it, becoming okay with it, all of these things. I was wondering if you had any real life examples of beginners doing this. Real life examples. Nothing really comes to mind. I mean, there's a bit of the folly of young monks who don't have lots of years of practice, kind of having an idea of what they should be doing, but it's a bit too much. It's a bit too extreme, and they don't tend to last because they go at this really high level of hardcore, thinking that's where the hardwood is, but they fall short because you can't do that forever. You're just like, you fall apart. um I guess that's kind of like the only real world example I could give. I think I might call it a night because I'm kind of crashing energy wise pretty hard. There's no questions or anything. So we did our hour of meditation, some sutta. We read a sutta, did a little Q&A. I think it's a pretty packed hour. That reminds me of when the Buddha talks about not tuning the guitar too loose or too tight. Yes, the Sona Sutta, not Soma, but Sona, about the Vinna. That's a very important. Every practitioner on the path should know that sutta so that they can pick up their theme and practice in a way that is most conducive for their path. All right. So, Sukhihotu, may you be happy and at ease, practice well and be well, and may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which, if I'm alive, should be next Monday for another Dhammapalooza. So, have a good week.